we were rough on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. I've always been a little jealous of Texas. Right. Texas, like.
The greatest nation in America.
Well, here's the thing. You can go to the crappiest city in Texas, but if you say something bad about it, they're going to fight you, right?
It's so true. Yeah.
Right? And I
so
love
true.
that about them. Like, they just love their whatever community they're in. They love their state. They love their flag. They love their cities.
All right, welcome back to the Look Around podcast. I have a great episode for you guys today. We are joined by Matt Pivarnik, the CEO of the Greater Topeka Partnership. Thanks so much for taking some time to meet with us
Happy
today.
to spend the time with you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
great.
so much.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great.
So how long have you been in Topeka? I guess tell me a little bit of your backstory.
So literally just in January celebrated 7 years.
Wow.
And it went by in a flash.
Yeah.
So to me, it feels like I've been here 2.5, 3, right? It went by really fast. Prior to coming here, I was actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, doing the same work, community development, economic development. And I was in that role for 17 years.
Wow.
And so it's been kind of cool because I got to be part of a transformation of a city in Tulsa.
Wow.
It wasn't that long ago where there was an episode of Friends and the entire 2 or 3 episodes making fun of Tulsa.
Where he gets sent from like New York to Tulsa for Christmas or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I got to be part of that community's transformation and then to just get another shot at that. And it was kind of cool because the way I met Topeka was that Topeka actually sent 70 people to Tulsa to study Tulsa and that transformation of that community and their best practices. And I had the opportunity to host the group. And that was in 2014.
Wow.
And then in 2015, I get this random call from a buddy of mine now named Brent Bowles with Shindalana Landscape. And Brent calls and says, would you be interested in coming to Topeka? And I'm like, sure. What are we going to do while I'm there? Like 1 day, 2 days, a retreat?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I mean like the real deal, like come to Topeka. And my first answer was, nah, not really. Not interested at all. But my wife and I ended up making a little trip here and spending a couple days. You guys will appreciate this. When we were leaving, we're pulling out. I can see the Capitol in my rearview mirror going on Highway 75. And my wife just looks at me and she's like, we're moving to Topeka.
Wow.
It was pretty powerful.
What was it about the city for her?
So we actually separated. And so I spent time with elected officials and I spent time with like CEOs of companies. She was out doing a different type of research. So she believes that she can really feel the heart of a city if she goes to a Walmart, right? And she talks to people just normal. She went to the rescue mission and spent a little time. Wow. She just meandered into the rescue mission. So her research and my research were totally
vastly different.
Yeah. And I think that her experience, it wasn't that she was saying, I want to move to Topeka. I just think that she knew we were coming to Topeka.
Wow.
And I did not as we were driving away.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I have so many questions. I'm trying to figure out where to start. So my first question is, what were you doing in Tulsa? Like, what were some of the things that you were doing to bring development, to bring excitement around, the culture there?
Yeah. A lot of the similar things that we're doing here, and that's one is we just had to double down and improve our own community's morale. And that was part of it. We were rough on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. I've always been a little jealous of Texas, right? Texas, like
the greatest nation in America.
Well, here's the thing. You can go to the crappiest city in Texas, but if you say something bad about it, they're going to fight you, right?
It's so true. Yeah.
Right? And I
so
love
true.
that about them. Like they just love their whatever community they're in. They love their state. They love their flag. They love their cities.
It's almost like there's a Texas brand.
It's
and
like
people
that.
really, really are about the brand that is Texas.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you don't mess with Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah.
It really, and it's like, it's almost to the point where you can tell if someone's from there before they say it.
Yeah.
They even get tattoos of their flag on their cap.
I mean, we know so. We have a friend with a Texas flag tattoo.
Absolutely. So,
Man.
So in Tulsa, that was one of the things we're just like, we just have to feel better about ourselves, right? This form, actually talking your city down, talking your own community down is actually a form of self-loathing. You're actually talking yourself down.
Wow, yeah.
Because cities are nothing but made up of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you're bagging on your own city, you're actually bagging on your neighbors, You're bagging on the people you go to church with, the people you go to school with, the people you spend time with. And in a way, you're actually bagging on yourself a little bit.
That's so true. That really is so true.
So, I mean, some of the things we jumped into, the first thing is we had to get young people in Tulsa plugged in. And so many people would line up and take credit for all the great things that have happened in Tulsa over the last couple of decades. But I would say one thing that jumps out at me that I think was probably more paramount than anything is in 2005, just a group of young people in their late 20s, early 30s banded together and said, we're going to change our community. And they did it. They did it. And
wow.
They ended up being about 10,000 strong.
Wow.
MTV was, watching them. They were getting out the vote and things like that. And
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I point back to that. I think getting them pumped up about their community there's a lot of success stories, but getting them pumped up really changed the morale of that community.
Wow.
That's really cool.
So kind of the Topeka equivalent would be like Forge is one of the initiatives, kind of in that vein.
Yeah.
Did you start Forge, or like how did Forge come to be? Like,
Forge was here when I got here. It was,
it was.
We rebranded it because it needed a little bit of a rebrand.
Yeah, some juice.
Yeah, it did. And so we rebranded it. It wasn't called Forge. I can't remember what it was
I was
called.
trying to think. I can't remember either.
It had something to do with the VHS. Like it had something to do with. Well, I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah.
But
Fast forward.
that's it.
Was it really?
That's
it. It was fast forward, and the logo was literally the fast forward button on a VCR.
That makes me think of like you remember renting VHSs?
Yes.
Be
Be kind, rewind.
Yes,
yeah.
Be Kind, Rewind. And so literally we rebranded it.
Wow.
When I got here, I was not in the demographic, right? So I didn't really want to have a lot of my own fingerprint on Forge, and I really let that be more of an organic. So they named it themselves, and it's been a pretty powerful group. And I would say right now that organization is as on fire as it has been in my 7 years.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, we've been to many Forge events, met a lot of great people, a lot of great young people.
Yeah.
And we love it. We love.
Well, even your hat with the flag. I mean, Forge, that was their idea. That was Forge's idea.
Wow.
We need a new flag. We want a cool flag like Tulsa and Wichita and other communities.
Yeah.
It's just like a rallying cry. And they are the ones that actually ran the creative contest.
Wow.
They ran the whole process. And a lot of people forget that Forge is the one that started that.
It's very cool.
Entire initiative.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so another question I have.
Yeah.
This is you're telling your story, like how you landed here. I know. Yeah, I guess I'm just not as familiar with like how like the structure works. Like, so you had a guy reach out to you who runs a landscaping company. How was he in a position to like give you this job, or you know what I'm saying? Like, how did that work? Like,
So he was actually the chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce.
oh, okay.
So
gotcha.
at that time, the Chamber and Go Topeka, our economic development organization, they were separate entities.
Gotcha.
And since then, in 2018, we've taken multiple community and economic development organizations and brought them under one collaborative agency here at the partnership. But he was the chair of the Chamber, and then there was also a chair of Go Topeka, and I had spent time with both of them in Tulsa in 14, plus the mayor and other folks.
Wow.
And so they were the ones that were actually filling that position of the CEO of those two organizations.
So this is probably a dumb question, but how does
That's okay.
the chamber, which I guess now the partnership is kind of oversees the chamber, or it's kind of the umbrella within.
Yeah.
How does the chamber fit into like local government, or like what's the structure? Like, how does it?
So the partnership is a 501c6 organization, and it's very much collaborative. So there's no one entity is over other entities, right?
Okay, yeah.
So all of us here, we all are employed by the Greater Topeka Partnership, that 501c6.
Gotcha.
But within it, there are multiple C6s, C3s, councils, things like that. The founding organizations was the Chamber of Commerce, Go Topeka Economic Development Organization, Visit Topeka, which is a convention and visitors bureau, and Downtown Topeka Incorporated. They are the founding organizations, and all of those organizations said, if we really are going to move the needle in this community, we can't be disparate, we can't be separate, we have to be collaborative. So let's pull all of our resources together. Let's be one organization, but we represent different brands and different verticals, and let's accomplish. And I mean, I think part of it was momentum 2022.
Sure.
Quite frankly, it was probably, as a community, we probably bit off more than we could chew.
Sure,
At least we
yeah.
bit off more than we could chew before the backbone organization of the partnership was
Yeah. So it's basically a collaboration of citizens. It has nothing to do with like city government or city hall or this. It's just like a.
So the partnership's a private organization with private 501c6 and C3s.
Cool.
But it's hard to delineate.
Sure. Okay,
Because
I
the
see what you're saying,
partnership between the city and the county and the Greater Topeka Partnership, we're probably the best example in the United States right now of harmony between those entities.
And it's not as much like that normally.
No, normally
Wow.
those entities are fighting. I mean, I can.
Was that your experience in Tulsa? Even though things were growing, there was a little bit more. Not to get you to talk bad about Tulsa, but like, didn't happen in Tulsa, right? This wasn't like
there was some
something you
harmony
brought.
there too. Sometimes I think when you get down to where you feel like you're just kind of beat down, that's when you kind of go back to back and fight battle together.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I think if you look around the country now, you will find a lot of entities like the partnership, cities and counties, spending more time disagreeing publicly than actually getting in a room and saying we're gonna fix this community.
Do you think it's interesting, like what you just, the comment you made about like when you get beat down, like when you feel like stuck or like, man, this is all that Topeka's ever gonna be, or whatever city you might be in, do you like it was momentum 2022, the like kind of presenting a big vision of like, this is what our city could be.
Yeah.
People are more willing to collaborate because they see this, like they see a hope for a future. They see like, man, our city could be amazing. Let's maybe put aside our differences. Let's collaborate a little more.
And I think the entire community did that, right? And then we delivered on 2022, right? So of the 54 initiatives that were lined out in Momentum 2022, we accomplished like 96% of that.
Wow.
So now we're into 2027, which is stressful as all get out, right? And the reason is because in 2022 we had 54 pretty major initiatives. 2027 is 21, but I mean they're huge. It's things like
bigger,
housing. It's things like the river, things like that, and they're so big. And now our citizens have come to rely on us as economic developers and community developers that we're actually going to do what we tell our citizens.
Right.
And by the way, our citizens informed the
projects.
yeah. I mean,
So what are some of those that you're the most excited about?
Oh, man. So excited, I would say excited probably the river, getting the river. I mean, continuing to work on downtown because by no means have we arrived. We still have a lot of work to do.
So that'd be like a river walk, like kind of a thing, or
Well, let's just call it a 21st century river development. So,
Okay.
So I don't know what that means yet because the River Board,
yeah.
which is the Riverfront Advisory Board, it's one of the entities within the partnership.
Gotcha.
And they just had their first board meeting last week. And we're really looking at some other communities and some other cities. But this is one of the only underdeveloped rivers left in the United States, riverfront, right here in Topeka, Kansas. And it's the only underdeveloped or undeveloped riverfront in a capital city.
Wow.
So
especially it's like downtown.
Yeah.
It's like basically in the downtown.
Right, and it connects Noto and downtown.
That's kind of how it's been explained to me. Is this river project is a way to flow downtown right into Noto and vice versa.
Totally.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Like a pearl district. I mean, just different pearls of beautiful things. Noto River, downtown.
Overland Station right there.
Yes,
It's just really,
yes. But the reason I don't know because we are going to take our inspiration from what other cities have done. We're bringing in a professional firm that can be our strategic partner in this. They understand rivers. They know how waterfronts work. So we don't want to kill fish. We don't want to stagnate the water. We want to do things that are great for our environment. We also want to make it navigable, but I don't know, will there be high rises and casinos, or will there be a lot of trails and parks, or will it be a combination of both?
So you're about to dig into kind of the exploration of, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So, I mean, but then when I flip over to housing, we just absolutely need it.
Yeah.
So we 100% have to have more houses because more people want to live here.
Yeah. So is that what exactly is just building more houses, like having more housing available? Is that the goal of that?
It's rehabbing our existing infrastructure and then our existing housing stock. It's adding new houses. apartments, condos. Affordable housing means affordable at every level.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
But I mean, youth sports is another one. We're kind of trying to double down on youth sports.
Yes.
And, build. Topeka has an opportunity to be a truly great destination for a family.
Yep.
That's what we want to be. I mean, we don't need to be nightclub city.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we are a family city, and we're a good city for families, and I think we're really wanting to just lean into that.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that for sure when I moved from a town a little further east of us to Topeka, and just how much stuff there is. Yeah, Lecompton. Yeah, a little further, maybe the pinnacle of the northeast of Kansas, as they would say. But there's just so much stuff for a family to do here.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got 2 kids under 2 years old, and we haven't touched 30% of the stuff we could have done as a family. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see.
It's pretty cool too, but what's really neat in our region is it's kind of cool. We have a set of assets here, right? But then our city, our sister city to the east in Lawrence, it's a different offering, right? And to me, it's a feather in our cap. It's part of what's in our toolbox. And then, like in Manhattan, like one of my favorite restaurants is in Manhattan, So you start looking at Emporia and Manhattan and Topeka and Lawrence, and you start thinking, really, we're all separate cities and counties, but in a way, we're also one economy, and we're pretty reliant on one another.
It really is. Yeah.
If you add up just Riley County and Manhattan, Topeka and Shawnee County, and Douglas County and Lawrence, we're actually at a combined population of over 500,000 people.
Wow.
That's a pretty significant city. There happens to be a little countryside in between each.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the fight for a lot of those cities is the same of how do I get people to come here and not just I'll take a day trip to Kansas City.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty cool that we have Kansas City so close, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I would have moved here if Kansas City wasn't there.
Right.
Like I like going to Royals games. I like going to see concerts and stuff like that. But it sure is nice coming home and having a 15-minute drive to work instead of a 55-minute drive.
It is true. So you mentioned a favorite restaurant. Are you, in the role that you have, you interface with a lot of business owners.
I do.
Are you allowed to say what your favorite restaurant in Topeka might be?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. But I thought I'd ask. Just see what. Do you have a favorite? Are you like what coffee shop?
I can't even say that because I love them all. But,
What about?
I mean, I do have a favorite restaurant in Topeka, and the restaurant owner knows it. Right, it's my wife's favorite restaurant.
There you go.
I'm not saying it.
So
publicly.
that's a little wink. You like whoever you are, you know who you are.
Contact us and schedule your interview.
But I will say this: I will say I like all the restaurants in Manhattan too. But there's a place called Bourbon and Baker there. I just love it.
Downtown. Yeah.
Yeah, that place is really good.
Yeah.
And I'll go out of my way to eat at Bourbon and Baker.
Yeah.
But see, I can't do that in Topeka.
Yeah, totally. I get it. I get it. We were just talking about we're about to drop our first episode tomorrow, and so we filmed it last week, and we're talking about what we love about Topeka, and a lot of like business owners we've never met that we're interviewing have become friends, and we're like, we can't say what our favorite place is like at the expense of someone else. Like, dang, man, like they're all great, and we want all of them to succeed, So
Agreed.
I get it. Yeah.
Agreed.
That's awesome. Well, how about this? Since you can't tell us what your favorite place is, 2 questions, and maybe we can close with this because I know you have a lot going on. So let's start here. What were you most surprised by just in the first few years of moving to Topeka, starting the work that you're doing?
Sure. So I moved here, and then my family came 6 months later, and then my parents moved here, and then my in-laws moved here.
Wow.
Yeah, and none of that was by design. They all just wanted to. Basically, I had grandkids. I had their grandkids, right? So, and then
they'll go wherever you get.
Yeah, and then my oldest son graduated from the University of Oklahoma as an engineering major. He ended up landing a job here. Then he met his wife, and then I had grandkids, right? So the most surprising thing for all of us, and I think we would all share this sentiment, we felt like we moved to this like amazing, incredible place.
Wow.
And we really liked it. My in-laws are from Milwaukee. My parents, they grew up in California. I mean, I've lived in some great cities. We all moved here, and we all fell in love with it really fast. The biggest surprise was how negative Topeka's own citizens were about Topeka. It's almost like Topeka had been conditioned to complain about its city.
It's so true.
And I remember my mom one time, she was at Menards, and she actually took a lady on. A lady was like, I'm so sorry you had to move here from Tulsa. My mom's like, she probably said it the wrong way, but she's like, I don't know how to say this, but you're ignorant. And ignorance not meant to be a negative word. It's just that you don't know what you have.
What you're
here.
missing.
This is amazing what you have. And she's like, I actually like it better here. And so that was the biggest surprise is how we're just rough on ourselves.
We talk about that a lot.
All the time. I mean, when I first moved here, that was one of the first things I said. And when Jon was getting ready to move here with his family, I said, nobody outside Topeka is going to change the way they think about Topeka until the people inside Topeka change the way they think about Topeka. And so we have this working theory that has proven, 99.9% true probably.
There's a few exceptions, but for the most part,
the people who love Topeka the most are the transplants.
Yes.
And the people who are from here forever can't get past this old image of what it once was.
So I started in January of 16, and like 10 days after I got here, I was giving like my speech at our annual meeting, and it was my 10-day observations. And one of the things I said, and I still have that speech, it's incredible to go back and read it now, but one of the things I said is, if talk to anybody that's moved here from somewhere else, whether it's in the last year, 5 years, 10, 15, or 20, they absolutely love it here.
Yes.
Talk to anybody that grew up here, and they don't like it. We have to change that.
Yep. I know.
We have to change
It's so true. Yeah, we have story after story of like neighbors and friends that we know who are like, like I lived in College Hill, and we had a park right across the street, and my neighbor grew up in that neighborhood. And, I'm taking my 2-year-old to the park, and we're loving it. We're like, man, this is great. There's other families with little kids, and we're meeting friends, and we're like, this is great. And my friend's like, man, Topeka sucks. Like, when I was 5, this bad thing happened at the park. And I was like, have you been there recently? It's not like that anymore. Like, it's awesome, You
know what, though? Go to the coolest city in America, right? Whether it's Austin, I don't care where it is, right?
Yeah.
Talk to someone that grew up there. They're going to be talking bad about there. It's kind of what we do, right?
It is true, yeah.
We grow up 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. We're frustrated with middle school. We're frustrated with high school. All we want to do is leave the city that we're in, and it kind of just breeds that a little bit. So,
it's kind of human nature, I think. If even outside of cities, think of the metaphor. You get a really, really attractive girlfriend. 6 years go by. Yeah. She's still really attractive, but you've taken it for granted.
Yeah, right.
Somebody else comes up and like, that is a beautiful girl.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Right? Well, last question before we close. How about this? What on a kind of a moving into the future,
fast forward.
Fast forward. There you go. And this isn't a negative question, but what are some things, like there are a lot of young people who could potentially start businesses, and there are a lot who are and who are really fighting to make the city better. Right. What are some things that you see no one is doing that could really add value? Like if there's a young person watching this that like, man, I want to do something. What are some things that just aren't here that could really thrive here?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is this is the size city where you can actually make a difference, right?
Yeah.
So go to a big city. There's no way that you can actually individually make an impact.
Sure,
so
3 million in Kansas City or whatever.
That's one thing I would just kind of throw out there is that if you want to get involved in community development, absolutely do it. The other thing, too, is you mentioned entrepreneurship. Jump in. I'm not sure we need another car wash, or coffee shop, but just jump in. Your idea is going to be so supported and funded here. Just get brave. And the other thing too is I'd like to see more young people starting businesses and minorities starting businesses in our community.
That's great.
We will wrap our arms around an entrepreneur and a small business and walk them through that process, and they'll get attention and funding and love like they can't get in a big city.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of a similar question to that, but a pivot maybe. Somebody says, I don't want to start a business. What are things that you guys as the Greater Topeka Partnership are already doing that somebody can just partner with? That doesn't take the mental capacity of I got to come up with this idea and I got to plan it, but what are the things you guys are already doing that people can come alongside with and that would bring the kind of change
like
you're hoping
kind of
to
like
see?
an average citizen
just Joe on the street wants to help Topeka grow. What can he do?
One of the things I think that we need to improve in the community right now is there's so many people who want to just roll up their sleeves and be involved, right? They want to volunteer. And I think that we are still grappling with how can we make sure that, let's just say we're going to do, I think it'd be really cool to get a bunch of people out on the river one Saturday and have 1,000 people doing a river cleanup, right? Yeah. I see other cities. We're not necessarily built to be able to command those type of forces, but that's a way that I think that we can improve and get better. The other thing is that if people can just join forces, you wearing that flag hat, just the mantra of being proud, kind of Texas proud of our Kansas City, right? The capital region here. That's when people ask, what can I do? What can I do? Like, well, we can put you to work, but what you can do is actually be an influencer, be positive, and sing from the rooftops. Here's the thing, though. This is really important. Complacency scares me to death, right? So I have people regularly coming up to me and saying, okay, now that we have succeeded, what are we going to do next? I'm like, we'll never finish succeeding.
Sure,
and we've not arrived.
There's a long list.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
I offended some people. This was probably, so I've been here 7 years. This is probably 4 years in. Things were moving in the right direction, right? And somebody's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think we are? I'm like, 3? And I mean, I
thought you were like 9.5.
Yeah, 3 because there's so much of a gap between where we are and where we could be. And I'm here to tell you, as soon as we hit a 9.5, which we haven't, as soon as we do, we'll lower 9.5. That'll become our new 0.
Well, there's a big difference in being a 3 out of 10 because you hate where you are and being a 3 out of 10 because you see what a 10 could
Absolutely.
be.
Exactly.
Right. That's
100%.
a huge difference in mentality.
I lose a little bit of sleep over just complacency. Topeka has a history of ups and downs, right? I mean, a lot of it, Topeka could, think about it, you guys. 51, there was a flood. 66, there was a tornado. 71, a base, an Air Force base closed. You can't find very many communities. Menninger,
I was going to say,
You can't find many communities that went through that much trial and tribulation and turmoil that has a success story like Topeka does. So our population had flatlined, right? But think about what this city has gone through over the last few years. So my thing is double down, triple down, quadruple down. Just don't get complacent.
Yeah.
And let's just be aggressive.
So two potential mottos I want to throw past you. What about don't mess with Topeka? Or everything's bigger in Topeka.
Yeah, that's funny. You know what? We are kind of like that. Don't mess with Topeka because I love it. We can have healthy disagreement in our community. We do because that's how we get better. But nobody from the outside better cross one of our elected officials, one of our friends, brothers, sisters.
Bro, freaking New York coming at us recently.
Speaking of brands,
come on.
Texas has a brand, New York has a brand.
Yeah.
We got a brand here too.
That's right. Well, Matt, thank you so much
Thanks,
for your
fellas.
time.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And really, even more than your time here on the podcast, thank you for all the time you're investing in this city.
And you guys. Yeah. I appreciate you guys.
Oh, yeah, we love it. We love Topeka. We love being here.
Yeah.
We have similar stories that we could tell, and we do often. But, man, we just appreciate what you're doing. And we hope that this inspires you to take some ownership. Even if you don't live in Topeka, wherever you live, take some ownership. Look around at the people and places that make your city so great and invest in those people, invest in those places. Maybe start one of those places yourself. So, Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Look Around podcast.
Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And follow us on Instagram at the Look Around podcast, where followers can submit questions for future interviews.
If you'd like to connect with us further, you can send us an email at thelookaroundpodcast@gmail.com.